I'm Doug Meye, and I serve on the staff of Transformation Ministries as the Developing Pastors Lead, and I want to welcome you to this pre-conference webinar. Today we're going to be talking about celebrating Christmas during COVID. And I know that in some ways it may seem like, for some, a little premature to be talking about this. Others of you are probably saying, no, we've been doing this since June. But let's face it, it's a different season, and there are some challenges because of the season that we're in to think about how is it that we really celebrate the birth of Jesus in a way which is a source of strength to our church community, but also something that allows us to proclaim the good news of his birth to the community that's around our church. As you know, we're doing this a little differently. If you've been on any of our other pre-conference webinars, they've all been kind of pure presentation. This one is going to be more of a conversation because it just seemed to be helpful to have some dialogue and some questions and your input as a part of the whole experience. But I have asked three of our pastors to kind of kick things off by presenting what they're thinking at this point. And those pastors are Glenn Lane, who's in Fallbrook, Dane Aaker, who is in Colton, and David Harris, who is in Scottsdale. And then after they've shared, you know, I want those of you who have some of your own ideas to feel free to jump in, and we'll just have a conversation. Glenn, it's good to have you as a part of this call. Why don't you just share with us a little bit about what you're thinking when it comes to Christmas?
All right, guys, so great to be with you today and to be able to share with you. I'm here mostly to learn, not to lead, but I'll tell you this. The church that you serve determines everything, the exegeting the community that you're in. Fallbrook, if you're not familiar with it, is in North San Diego County. We're adjacent to Camp Pendleton. It's hilly. It's, I call it semi-rural because it isn't really rural. There isn't large open spaces, but we happen to be blessed with a lot of land. That's one great thing about our church. We don't have a whole bunch of people. You know, currently during COVID, we're running attendance around 25. Normally we've run about twice that. And other pastors I talk to say roughly the same thing. If capacity were allowed, they're running about 50%. Also, we're in the process of merging with another church, and in our mind, we're planting a new church. We're hoping that gets planted January 1st, but we'll see. So we have, for the last several years, done Christmas Eve jointly with that church who rents space from us, as well as with a Hispanic Church of God church that's on the campus. So we knew we were going to do it together. The problem is that we're already near capacity as far as what we're allowed to do inside. We can't guarantee that things will be any different when it comes to capacity going forward. So we're going outside. We're going to go back outside, and that gives us the ability to do some things we wanted to do, but didn't have the focus to do, something we've all been experiencing during COVID. So we're reshaping this as not only outdoor, but as living nativity. We've never done that. We have now people in the church where we can have access to the animals we need to do that, and the work power to build what will be needed for that. That is about as far as we've come with our plans. That we have been so busy with general ministry, COVID-related things, and then also this process of coming together. Right now, we're just dealing with a concept. But as I said, we're blessed with lots of land and a nice big flat space that's right outside of a worship center. So that's what our plans are currently for Christmas Eve. I haven't even set the time for that thing yet, but that's where we are.
So you would do that on Christmas Eve?
Yes, sir. That'd be a Christmas Eve thing. And, you know, we haven't quite worked out all the like I said, that is the whole thing. We haven't gotten to concept, much beyond concept. We haven't gotten to plan because we're up to here with other things that we absolutely have to do in short order. And I'd love to hear from other people what they've learned about doing outdoor and what they've learned about doing live nativity kinds of Christmas Eve experiences. I'm hoping I'm going to hear some of that today because I'm here to take notes.
Okay. Super. Great. Thanks, Glenn. Yeah, Dane, why don't you share with us what you're thinking at this point?
So we're at this point, we're going to go outside too, like Glenn, and we are outside right now, and we're going to do a simple service outside. You know, hymns. I mean, not hymns, Christmas songs. We will probably have a children's moment on video, a message, and we want to make it, you know, decorate it, get some lights up, and make it look nice. And I don't know, we bounced around the idea of having some fire pits and so on. We've been doing church outside, and I came out here. I hope the internet connection is stable enough. I changed connections, so I think it helped. So this is our parking lot right here, and the back of our building. And if you can see there, there's a big screen we put up there.
Yep.
And we have people bring their own chairs. There's a plane flying over. Can you hear that? It'll be done in a minute. It's a whole new world. So our people, they really spread out on this parking lot. We've been running 300 to 400 on Sunday nights. We're about to start a second service, as well as what we do digitally. And then we have this park across the street, if you can see it. And people that don't want to wear, we have a hard and fast rule about masks in our church parking lot. But those that don't want to wear masks go across the street to the park, and they can hear over there. Some people go over there anyway, just because they like it. So we haven't really planned this service yet, which is unusual for us. We may do like hot chocolate and coffee and so on, and just try to make it special. So now last year we took this park and we had all kinds of activities for kids over there. We had a train, we had bouncers, we had a petting zoo, we had crafts, and we probably won't do that this year because of safety. Oh, one last thing, and then I'll turn it over to you guys. See these green mats here? I don't know if you can see them, but they're cleaning them right now. They clean them every week. When parents show up, we give their kids a mat for church, and we'll probably do this on Christmas Eve too. We've actually done this for years on Christmas Eve in the sanctuary. And then we give them an activity bag. So all the kids that come have a green mat, kind of an AstroTurf looking thing that they sit on, and then they can play and color and do their thing as well. So that's where we're at right now. And we plan to be the same place on Christmas. We're just going for it that Christmas Eve is going to be outside. We tried to go back in at 25% capacity, and it did not feel good. So we are waiting. In California, there's another bar where we can go back in at 50%. And I think we may change depending on how long it is, but I think we're not going to go back in the building until we can hit 50% capacity. And even then, we'll probably keep an outdoor service for a while.
Any questions for Dane from anybody? I have one, Dane. You talked about kind of Christmas Eve. What are you thinking about services leading up to Christmas? Are you going to try to have a special emphasis or do something different, you know, come the first Sunday in Advent, you know, in terms of the decorations and what you'll be doing in the parking lot?
You know, I feel like I should answer yes to that question, but right now we haven't really planned anything special. We're just kind of, honestly, it feels unique all the time because we're meeting outside. And in downtown Colton, if we put Christmas decorations up on the building, we'll probably have to replace them every week. So they'll be stolen. So we probably will just kind of keep going with Sunday nights like they are, and then decorate on Christmas Eve and go for it on Christmas Eve. That's my guess.
You could put a little manger scene out there, and when it's stolen, you could say, "Who has Jesus?" right? Or something like that. It becomes the hunt. So any questions, other questions for Dane?
Just when you said that you went in the building, it just didn't feel good because it was too many people with the COVID thing? Is that what you're saying?
It was too thin. You know, we were at 25% capacity and everyone had to wear a mask. Our sanctuary seats 457 with the balcony and the overflow room. So when we went back in, the maximum we could have, because the state of, are you in California? Sorry to ask, I should know that. The maximum was 100, but by the time we took our tech center people out who were filming for the digital service and our band, it brought us down to 85 people. That was the maximum. I know a lot of churches are blowing off the rules. We have not felt comfortable blowing off the rules. So we really enforced that 80, but frankly, people didn't come back. That's the other thing. Before this, we did 6 services a weekend. And so we started back with 6 services at 25% capacity. Some of our services only had 20 attenders. I remember sitting there thinking there's only 20 people in this room. That did not feel successful. It's way more dynamic outside, way more fun outside, having, you know, a lot of people. So we've kind of put the pause button on going back. And honestly, Doug, you kind of counseled me originally to be maybe a little slower than we were. We've decided to slow down going back inside until there's a critical mass, until there's a dynamic that's going to be like the old days. It probably won't be like the old days initially, but we'd like to get a little closer to that than we did when we went back in. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I was just trying to figure out what felt weird. If you were saying it felt weird because it was too packed, or if it was because it was too thin.
Oh,
We've been the same. We've been following the guidelines. And we've just been doing. So we started with 2 outdoor services, and the second one was pretty dismal. And so this last weekend we decided to go to 1, and we had 20 more people than the week before. So we had 1 packed service, and it was very, very uncomfortable from a COVID perspective. So I think we're gonna have to switch it back. So I was just curious why you were saying that, but that's all.
yeah. So we're actually going to go from 1 to 2 now. So we'll see how that goes. We have people, did I say this to all of you? I know I said it to Doug and a few of you. We have people watching us to make sure our people are spaced out enough on Sunday nights. We literally had a neighbor, come over with a drone, and I told him he couldn't fly it over the parking lot. And he said, but legally you can't stop me from flying it on the sidewalk. And I said, that's true. And he flew it back and forth on the sidewalk for 10 to 15 minutes. And I'm sure he probably went home and analyzed that, because that's what's happening is that how it is for most of you guys? People are definitely watching. We stopped posting shots on Instagram because people would pull them apart and look at them to make sure everybody was spaced out 6 feet.
Dane, TM is training some eagles that will be sending your direction to take out the drones that are doing surveillance work. So we'll just see. Hey, thank you. Let's move on to David. So David, share with us a little bit what you're thinking. I know you got lots of ideas. We'd love to hear them.
Well, I'm listening to Dane, and I'm just grateful I'm in Arizona where people don't care. So I have some advantages here. We are, the state of Arizona has some modest restrictions, and we are cautious, but we aren't restrictive, prohibitive like the state of California is. Address a couple of different areas here. One is Christmas Eve specific, because we have some advantages. We're doing a regular indoor service just like we would any other year. First of all, we know that we aren't going to have as many people turn out just based on what is currently going on. And so our auditorium will seat 500. So we're okay doing that, and the candle lighting and the whole 9 yards. And then we're doing a both and. And then what we're also doing is we're filming a special online service separate from the live one. We will play them simultaneously, and there will be some similarities, but there will also be some differences. But we're providing, like some of our leaders and different families who are going to be hosting families in their home, and they're going to watch the special service online simultaneous with what we're doing live. And so then we're providing all of them with candles and everything that they would need to have the in-home experience have the same impact. And then a lot of these folks we're asking them to do watch parties, like some of our group leaders and stuff. So there may be anywhere from a half a dozen to 12 or 15 people depending on the living room, sitting in a living room while X number of people are sitting in our auditorium. We're passing out the candles, giving them all of that stuff. That's what we're doing. We kicked around a bunch of stuff on Christmas Eve, and I've got not reams of stuff, but I got some pretty cool stuff I could share with you guys if you want. A couple years ago when I first came here, And the church was trying to recalibrate in a little storefront. We actually put together an outdoor service. We had a semi-bed flat truck as the stage. We had space heaters all across the parking lot. And we had, different stations with hot chocolate and chili and all that stuff. And in California, and all of this with the asterisks, that everything is following safety protocols. So you can do hot chocolate stations or chili stations or whatever. We had all of that going on. The other thing that we're going to be doing is the Sunday evening prior to Christmas. So Christmas Eve is a Thursday. So the Sunday evening, if you're familiar with the orange thing called Jingle Jam, we're doing something along those lines. And we're going to have kind of like a family takeover, and we're going to do a bunch of different video type things. We're going to have MCs doing personality type characters, Disney-esque, but appropriate to the occasion. We're going to have tabletop experiences. So we're going to be doing like a variety show kind of thing, dinner theater minus the dinner. And then we'll have some of our staff out in the room in costumes, kind of helping to facilitate all of the interaction and all that stuff, and character interactions. But then one of the things that we're doing earlier is in the month is we're going to do child dedications. Some of those will be done in people's homes. Some of those will be done, we might bring them all in like on a Saturday morning, just the families, and do the baby dedications with just those families there in an empty auditorium. But we're going to film it all, and then we're going to share the highlights in a video on Christmas Eve. And then one of the things that we're doing to use a San Diego County term, Glenn, from our friends at North Coast, to enhance the sticky factor, is we're to build an assimilation factor of new circle of friends. We're putting together a Facebook cohort for all those families who did the child dedications, so that now they are connected with other people that they met doing something of common interest. And so now they got the Facebook cohort that could eventually become a certain type of small group or whatever 2021 builds. And so that we can start working in those kinds of things. And then one of the things we haven't decided yet, but we're kicking around, is the possibility of doing baptisms on Christmas Eve. With a little bit of chlorine, our baptistry is perfectly safe in terms of the COVID thing. So we're kicking around doing baptisms on Christmas Eve with the idea, how cool would that be that, you're celebrating a Christmas Eve experience, that was when you got baptized. And so there are a whole bunch of other things that I've got in mind leading up to, or for folks in California who don't have some of the advantages we have in terms of regathering here in Arizona. But I'll save those because there's no sense in me scratching where people aren't itching. That's some of what we're doing, both the ramp up to as well as the day of Christmas Eve. And so we're actually really, really excited. We think we've got some stuff that help us optimize this in some pretty cool ways.
Questions for David? He shared a lot of stuff. What do you want to follow up on?
Well, I'm curious, before the meeting, you said that you're running 3,000 views online.
That's
right?
correct.
So will your Christmas Eve service will be both online and live?
We will do a live experience in our auditorium, and we're going to pre-record one to be played simultaneously for our online congregation. We call it our global campus. They'll both be done. Let's say we do them at 5 o'clock on Christmas Eve. They'll both be done at the same time. And then what we'll do is we'll replay the online version on Christmas morning, and I'll actually be the online host for that morning.
So when you add your online views and your in-house views together, you have a lot more people than you had before COVID.
Oh, good night. COVID's the best thing that happened to this church in 25 years. It's given us an opportunity to reach the world rather than just, being generous to our community, but, us for no more kind of thing. It's been a huge blessing, Dane. God's been all over it. I've been very fortunate in that I got some good coaching from people way smarter than I, on March 15 when the world shut down. And we embraced it and said, we're going to go for it. So yeah. Last week we had a little over 3,000 people, 3,300 to be exact. It's the first time we've been that big. We've been doing 1,800 to 2,000 consistently since this thing hit. But we've had a couple of big weeks, and for whatever reason, last week happened to be one of those weeks.
It's just interesting because most churches are declining online. So how did you do the opposite of that?
Well, here's what I think. We do one other thing that isn't sexy, but it's effective. when this hit, you know, nobody knew what to do, right? We thought it was going to be a 60 to 90 day thing. And, you know, it wasn't like we could call somebody back in Chicago and say, hey, remember 10 years when the world shut down because of pandemic? What'd you guys do? So we got some good coaching, just kind of conversations like this with about 100 pastors I'm in a network with across the country. And then out of absolute nothing but sheer burden and need, I started a Wednesday night online prayer gathering. We have two groups of people in our church that make up seemingly the bulk of the working group. We have a lot of medical personnel, and we have a lot of grocery store, Costco, Walmart kind of personnel. And so we just started gathering on Wednesday nights, just saying, hey, we're just going to pray about COVID globally, across the country, our leaders, and then for these people in our church who are essential workers, just out of sheer need. And it just started growing organically. We had a Muslim in Bangladesh joining us. He had COVID, like his father had COVID. And he's like, will you pray for my family? He was with us 5 weeks in a row. And then it started growing. Then it hit me about 6 weeks into it. You know, I'm not that interesting and I can't pray, you know, for an hour. It was an interactive prayer thing. We announce it. They type in their comments. I pray. Then I started inviting worship leaders all across the country who are friends of mine to come in and do, you know, 3 or 4 songs. Some of them are names you guys would recognize. And so then that started snowballing, and it's not something we advertise other than just on Facebook. Hey, join us live on Wednesday nights. But the spillover effect from the prayers of the hearts of our people into what it's done. And then for those 70 to 75 people who are in the room with us on Sunday mornings, there's more joy and energy over the last 6 or 8 weeks than we've had in the previous 5 years combined. I mean, it's just unbelievable what it feels like in there. And our people know that we've got a couple thousand more of them folks watching online. So a lot of it's that prayer experience. And then our church didn't get caught up in the stupid church stuff. You know, every idiot in America right now has a microphone, right? It's called a keyboard. And pastors get emails from the people who say, well, if you make us wear masks, you don't trust God. And if you don't make us wear masks, you don't care if people die. Our church never had any of that drama. We just embraced what is, took the little bit more conservative approach, at least by Arizona standards, and just poured ourselves out to God. And it's one of those times, Dane, I don't have an explanation. Jesus decided to be nice to us. And we happened to catch a couple of breaks along the way.
That's great.
But the Christmas thing, we're really stoked about. I got a whole bunch of other ideas for folks who are interested, whether we do it on this call or you want to call me privately. I got a whole page of things we aren't doing that we could have done, and you guys can do in California.
Yeah, because I think we'd be interested in hear what you're thinking. Tell us a little bit of the difference between your online service for Christmas Eve and what you're going to do in person. Why are you doing 2 different ones?
So we want to make sure that we think it'd be tough because we'll have the lights so low and what we do with candles. We think it'd be tough for that to fully translate through the cameras into people's living rooms. So we're going to give them the candlelight stuff as if they're doing it simultaneously with us. But with the online experience, we get to tailor the music a little bit more to the global audience. And then we will build in more video stuff and less music. And so that people are getting to see like some of the child dedications and some of the other Christmas experience, some of the outreach type things that we're doing, because keep in mind, this is going to go to thousands and thousands of people around the world. So on one hand, it's a great worship experience. On the other hand, it's also a little bit of promo for our church. Because we're going to show outreach stuff. We're going to show child dedications. We're going to do a couple of interviews with some of our newer people, and we'll do less music. And also it'll be probably 10 minutes shorter, maybe as much as 15 minutes shorter. We try to keep the online service to about 45 to 50 minutes, just because people won't sit and watch it, you know? And so that's some of the stuff that's going to be different. And then also we can control the quality, where if we have a glitch on Christmas Eve for some reason, and then we lose a whole audience that we wouldn't get on a typical Sunday morning. And so we want to make sure that we've got that well done also. And we can use some different musicians and different vocalists when we record that won't be available to us on Christmas Eve. So we get a little bit more variety.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Hey, we're going to come back to just kind of having a dialogue. But before we do that, Bill Stafiri, it's good to have you online. And I know we talked a little bit, and I asked you to just kind of share a little bit of what you're thinking at Beach Point. So why don't you do that, and then we'll just sort of open it up.
I mean, the only things that would be different from, we're going to watch what happens in Orange County as far as we're close to orange, level orange, which would open things up. But I think what we've realized is early on, out of necessity, you go online and everyone's willing to do it. Then what you realize you're doing is you're just trying. What could work early was you could turn what you were doing live to online. But now I think you have to start thinking a little bit different. At least we've got to think a little bit differently, because as we've transitioned now to having 2 services live, we're realizing that the experience live and experience that you're getting at home is a little different. So we're trying to think through how to create something, and I appreciate some of the wisdom of you guys sharing. Been taking some good notes of how we create both an online version and a live version. But we can't. I think what we've been talking about is we can't do what we normally do. And we get large numbers that will come out live. We're just not going to be able to support that. So we've been really trying to think about how we create a Christmas at home experience. We know there's going to be people that want to come. I think for their own psyche, for their own emotional health, they want to be in the property, around other people, other believers. But where I think Christmas is so different, at least for us, Christmas is so different than Easter is like when everyone who's a part of Beach Point shows up at once, and that kind of oikos group. Christmas for us is people bring their families and they're celebrating together. So there's a lot of reluctant people that get brought to Christmas Eve. And my expectation is we're going to have a lot of people this year who are going to have even greater reason to be reluctant. I don't know that I really want to go to a large group meeting live in person with people I don't know while we're in a pandemic, depending on where we are in December. And so we've done this twice, and it's worked really well both times. In fact, we're doing it right now. But what we found is, so we've been creating these just simple boxes that we deliver, similar to, I guess, what David is saying, but we've targeted towards families. And, but it's got some strong how-to kits to it. So even within the video, you're pulling things out of the box, you're using it on cues and things like that. We've been doing this with our kids and family ministry, and parents have just been sharing how helpful that is. They want to do church at home, but they also feel like they don't just want to turn on the video and then walk away like they do in a restaurant kind of thing, just put their kids' headphones on and they watch YouTube. So I think them feeling like they've got something that they can interact with, something they can help lead together, or an activity they can do together. So we're thinking through that. But one of the things that we've done the last couple of years, and we'll continue to do this year, is during Christmas time, during year-end time, we've just we've changed our focus of year-end offering even to be really focused on giving it away versus trying to kind of make up our deficit towards the end. And so we always figure out where we're going to give our offering first. So the first fruits of our Christmas offering don't go to us. It goes to a local project and a global project. And so the one thing that happened in COVID that we weren't prepared, we didn't expect it, but we've been reaching into the poorest neighborhood in our city. Every week, we're feeding anywhere from 30 to 40 families a week. And so that has actually, it's been like a very repentant move on a part of our church, because we've basically ignored the neighborhood for the last 30 years. But it has increased our ministry. There are other churches we've partnered with. There's a lot of really exciting things that are coming out of that. So we have a partnership that will happen there, and then a water project that's going to happen with. We've got Kenyans in our church, and so a water project that will happen with Kenya. That's the plan, at least right now. But what that does, what it's done for us these past years, and what we've seen even in the midst of COVID, the more focused we are on caring for real present needs, the whole tide of the church, and I think we've talked about this over weeks, and others of you are finding that out as well. But over weeks, we just found the whole tide of giving has gone up when people are focused outside of themselves. So we're trying to think about what we can do in person. And obviously we know that that's compromised. We don't think just, I think, Brian, you were saying this, I don't think just putting the video camera on and trying to replicate that at home is going to be the same kind of thing for us. So we're trying to think creatively how we can do it. I don't have an OB on my staff, so I can't create like, you know, what City Church does is, you know, they're so smart and fun. So maybe I'll outsource Kyle and all his team for a month. But, you know, trying to figure out the ways that you can create something that families could actually encourage, you know, the aunts and uncles to want to sit around the television and interact. So it's as all of you know, just such a new challenge.
Doug, you're muted.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Questions for Bill or things that you want to add just from your situation that you're thinking about doing? And then let's just do a little bit of Q&A here, conversation. We'll take it as long as it's fruitful, and we don't need to take it any longer than that. So.
I'm just curious if Bill or anyone has a tent or a covering when they meet outdoors, or are you just meeting under the open air?
We have an
Pop-up
indoor
tents
outdoor
galore.
space that we just built. So, I mean, we didn't plan on building the greatest COVID facility in Orange County, but we happened to do it. So we've got a covered patio, a pavilion that all the walls open up. It's kind of, I mean, everyone's like, wow, it's almost as if God planned it. I don't think God planned, I don't know how that works. My theology is not that big. So all I know is we actually have something that is really nice with our weather. And that's what our architect thought, but so that helps. We can have people in indoor outdoor space spread out. And we've been pretty full on in the 2 hours we're offering right now.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. So no one else has a shelter. You're all meeting out in the stars, so to speak. Okay.
Dane, we have a shelter. We have a covered patio where the only people outside in the 100+ sun are the worship leaders and the pastor, which is really good because the service is shorter.
Yeah, we just do pop-up tents and stuff, but we looked into like renting a legit tent, and it's just too much money.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, thanks.
What are some of the rest of you thinking for the Christmas season right now? Any thoughts that kind of complement what you've already heard or add to it?
I like what the guys have had to say. I think the general principle is we have to stay consistent with our why and our what. You know, why do we do Christmas Eve anyway? Christmas Eve service. And if the answer is because it's December 24th, then we should probably relook at that. And so what is it we're trying to accomplish? And so after we know that, I'm asking my people, and I'm doing a transitional pastorate, by the way, to give some people some context. So I'm asking the people 2 questions. If we still want to accomplish the same why and what, how do we do it differently this year? And then the second question is, what would our people give us permission to do this year because of COVID-19 that we normally wouldn't have permission to do? And so I mentioned we're going to do a service that we show throughout the day because we have multiple blended families and then generational families. And they don't get to go to church together because they have different priorities on Christmas Eve. But if we do it at 12, 2, 4, 6, and 8 online, they can find a time to do that and to sit down as a family. And we're just going to do one live at 6 o'clock. The online will be the exact same elements, just filmed from a living room. You know, the Christmas songs will be visually driven rather than lyrics and join in. And we do a kid's story. It'll be the candy cane story this year. So we will really, dress up a room that our children's director will tell that story from. And obviously we'll send candy canes home with anybody who wants to kind of do that at home. So we're just asking those questions. How can we do it differently this year? And what do we have permission to do? So
why do we do what we do? What are we trying to do now?
what would it look like if we succeed?
Yeah.
What are the stories we'd like to be telling in January because of what happened on Christmas Eve?
Cool. Yeah.
The one other thing that we do that isn't on Christmas Eve, and I don't know if we're going to be able to pull it off this year, but we have the last few years. Christmas is diffuse. It's a season, and even Christmas Eve is not representative. It's not like someone said. It's not like Easter. Easter's like boom, one day. With Christmas Eve, you get a lot of family that are traveling. You get your own people traveling away. It's very hard to turn that into a friend day kind of experience. So the second Sunday of December, we've observed as Come Home for Christmas Sunday for the last couple of years. And we just do the classic elements of a friend day in terms of getting our people to invite and so forth. Just thought I'd throw that into the mix.
That's good. Thanks. Ryan, I want to go back to you. So you're going to run your service all of Christmas. So it's kind of like, is it the Christmas Story that runs on the network TV just all of Christmas? You can either go to that or Fresno.
That's it. It's a Wonderful Life or Christmas Story.
There you go. I love it. Yeah. Jim Miller, I'm going to put you on the spot. What are you guys thinking?
Well, we're in LA County, so if anything opens, we'll be last. We're comfortable in our parking lot. For perspective, on the average Sunday these days, there's about 150 in the parking lot. And I don't know what our online audience is off the top of my head. I initially told my staff to plan to go either indoors or outdoors at the last minute, but I'm increasingly thinking it's just going to be outdoors, and that's the way it is. So we're comfortable with that. That's what we've been doing anyway. The contingency we're not sure how to prepare for is sometimes it will rain on Christmas here, and that could happen, and the pop-up tents aren't going to cover it. We are doing one thing that's a little unique. Every year on the 24th in the morning, we have a kids program where they get up and act out the Christmas story, and we have cereal or pancakes or whatnot. And there's a way we figured out to do that that's within the boundaries of the health code, where they're going to rotate through stations where they have breakfast in one part of the parking lot. Our parking lot's a big U around the building. So breakfast in one part, singing in one part, and then Christmas story in one part. And we can cycle them all through and still have their little Christmas show in the morning.
So the kids do that? Doing the Christmas story?
The kids are invited to participate. It's all organized by our staff, but we call them up front on the stage and so forth. It'll look different this year, but there are ways to do it that are still legal.
Okay, cool. So City Church, are you guys thinking of doing something creative online, or are you that far down the road? What's going on with you guys?
They're working for me, Doug. Didn't you hear?
Yeah. Well, I didn't know this was going to be a discussion, which is why I showed up with my in and out, and I got exposed with my video camera on. But so I actually came here to get some ideas, not to give them. But I think what we're trying to work towards is something of a blend between online and in person that is highly creative and involving of sort of merging the worlds in a really cool way, or at least trying to touch on different aspects of each one. So we have a couple of ideas that we're thinking through along those lines. I had debated, and we still are, kind of being inside versus outside. And I think we have a way where we could do multiple indoor and it would be okay. But we'll see, things can change. So my initial thought was, no, I didn't have a plan, but now it's like, okay, let's plan for it. And if we have to pivot somewhere else or online, then we can always do that. But so we're going to plan for indoors, actually, most likely, and hope for the best, and just kind of see what happens. So that's kind of what we were thinking. David, I was going to ask you one question though, because I after you said you guys have had a really great couple of weeks, I went and I was hopping on your site and checking them out. Really awesome stuff that the Lord's been doing. So you currently, as I was watching it, you're streaming it now, right? You're not doing a pre-recorded.
No,
right?
we did pre-recorded back when we couldn't do,
So-
regular church. But yeah, we're streaming it, but we engage the online audience through an online campus pastor, and then how we direct our music and some things in the message, Kyle.
Yeah. So my question is, so why do a pre-recorded for Christmas when your stream's working?
Just we're not sure, given the ambiance in the room, that we can get it to translate. It's not a done deal, but that's how we're leaning. We're just not sure we can get the Christmas experience to translate, because it will be a little bit different with some of the elements than a typical Sunday morning. And it would also be a little bit longer than a typical Sunday morning. Like I said, we try to keep those, since we're streaming, to 45 to 50 minutes as a rule. And on Christmas Eve, we want to take our time and build in a children's moment or a family moment. We want to take our time and not rush the candle stuff. I'll do a 15 to 20 minute message, but our people like to sing, and it's the one time a year we actually do kind of a blended service. That's what we're thinking. Again, this is October, and during COVID, long range planning is 2 days. So that's where we are for now with that. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff that we have shelved, but they're great ideas that we may circle back to. And if we had this conversation a month from now, we'd do some of those other things. That's where we are right now. And I'm also open to suggestion. This is like loose Jello right now. It's not cement.
I have a question for all of you. Are you thinking of trying to move stuff more into the families and the homes? In a sense, kind of decentralizing? Let's say you did an Advent wreath or something like that. Instead of doing it at the church, do it around families, or other kinds of activities that could be done by families instead of the church as a whole.
Let me
I would
jump
just
off.
speak-
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just gonna say, for ourselves, I wouldn't say it using those words, just more trying to have whatever package we put together be reflective of the different audiences that are there. So there'll be some stuff at home, there'll be some stuff, for people that are here, that different. And just, so it's kind of more, so it's like you would get a broad view of the kinds of people to be watching and how to interact with them.
Well, I was going to say, jumping off of what David Harris said, one of the greatest gifts that God could give a transitional pastor is to shut down your Sunday services. Because we get to create inviting and how that works. And, inviting for this church was, can I find somebody who left who I can go invite to come back? Mm-hmm. So we took a huge shift this fall. I did the Art of Neighboring. Many of you have probably seen that block map, that tic-tac-toe board that you draw yourself in the middle. I kind of forced everybody to get to know their neighbors, and how Christmas will play into this is we're doing the go part. So Halloween, instead of trick-or-treating, it's drop off postcards at your neighbors' houses. How many kids they have, they can put it back in the mail, and then you bring them a contactless bag of candy for each kid on Halloween. Thanksgiving, we're doing some of the same things. So Christmas, we're obviously playing into that, where we're encouraging our people. How can you go to your block map, and what could you do to bless families? And so we're going to give them boxes where they can make some things for the families around them, just some creative, kind of craft projects and different things that they can give to their neighbors. And that's one of the things we're going to encourage them with the Christmas Eve, is to do the watch party idea. Because even if they won't come to church, which I think this year, a couple of guys have alluded to it, that's a tough invite. Bill mentioned to say, hey, come be around tons of people that you don't know who may be infected on Christmas Eve. That's a tough invite, but doing it in your neighborhood, or depending on weather, even doing it outside in your neighborhood, we're going to really encourage people to reach out to those just immediately around them and see what they can do.
Share just, Brian, a little bit about the Art of Neighboring for anybody who doesn't know that. Where would they learn more about that?
Well, actually, if you just do artofneighboring.com, you'll go there. I just used their block map. I did different messages.
Okay.
If anybody's interested in those messages, I'd be more than willing to share them with you. But we were doing outside services during this, which is great when you're talking about neighboring. and you hear the neighbors around your church, and the guy on the motorcycle realizes what you're doing, so he goes up and down the street 20 times during the message. It's great to be able to talk to people about that because they're living it. So artofneighboring.com, they have some ideas there. The block map I think is really good. I just did the GC cubed. So I did, great commandment, great compassion, great commission.
Cool.
Doug, again, we have a few advantages here in Arizona, California. My California friends don't have, but we are actually working on different things, an alternative version of trunk or treat, and then some of the Christmas Sundays and Saturdays leading up to Christmas Eve, where we're actually drawing people to us, but we have the advantage of having a very large parking lot, and like virtually nobody else is open except us because it's in a commercial area. And so we're actually doing more family-focused, family-oriented outreach kind of stuff in terms of bringing people in. And then, of course, in whatever it is they're participating in, there's always that bag of goodies, whether it's candy for kids or stuff that's, again, the caveat, everything's appropriate to safety codes. But and then it's always going to include the opportunity for them to join us, whether it's live or virtual, in one of our worship opportunities at a facility or online. But we're working really hard at taking advantage of the fact that people are bored, and there's no new programming on television because even Hollywood had to shut down. And so they're looking for stuff to do that's family friendly in our estimation. And we think that we have found a niche that'll help us have impact and do some things creatively that we have some advantages to do here. But we're intentionally going after people and bringing them onto the space, but building all the appropriate levels of care and into that too. And so we'll see what happens. Have this conversation again January 2nd, see how it worked out.
Yeah, we ought to do that, right? What did we learn, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it's unprecedented.
Yeah. Other thoughts, input?
We went through for Good Friday, we did that kind of a stay at home. Well, they had to stay at home, enact communion and lead in communion and prayers and scripture readings. It was, a lot of people liked it, but we didn't get the participation that we would get with, streaming an event. But I actually thought it was more meaningful. Maybe that was just me. But, we had a little video that explained it. We took people through a series of steps. I thought it was really good to get the families together, taking communion together. So we could do something like that at Christmas Eve. I hadn't thought of that, but I like that idea for the people that stay at home.
Anyone else? Well, if you know me, you know I'm not one to keep people hanging around just because we've scheduled it to 2 o'clock. So we can sign off on this. First of all, thanks for the great ideas. Gosh, I'm thinking if I was a pastor right now, I would be, first of all, I'd be motivated to do something, and just some great ideas to think about how can, we do that. So thank you all for being a part of the conversation. I want to encourage you, if you haven't registered for the conference yet, go ahead and do that. You can do that through the TM website. Get your team registered. You can watch it at your church. There's a bunch of watch parties you can go to at that point. And also, if you have registered, just take it upon yourself to download this app called Huva, because it's going to be the way that we interact with the conference. And so download the Huva app. But it's coming up shortly. Appreciate you guys praying for that, and that God would do, just a good work in people's lives. It would be an encouragement to pastors. I know we're all tired of the virtual stuff, but I think a lot of work has been put into this. It's going to be, I think, creative and good and helpful. So, hey, why don't we close in prayer? And Brian Berman, could I ask you to just close for us in prayer as we move in to the season that we're in, and then towards the conference, and then Christmas.
Father, thanks for just the people on the call and wanting to impact your kingdom, a desire to, even in the midst of unknown and all those different unwords that we've been using these past months, that God, we know your message remains the same. So help us figure out how can we live the Christmas story out this year? What are some things that we can do to engage our people in that too?
Yes.
God, I pray that it would be an opportunity to take advantage of the disadvantage and really see some change lives, because during tension and transition, people are often open. So God, I just pray that you would use our people and our churches to reach into our communities this season. Thanks for Doug and his leadership and the TM staff, and for the others on the call. Thanks for the wisdom that we are better together in the coming together collectively. We pray this in your son's name. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Amen.
Hey, thank you all. Appreciate it so much.